What the person you trusted most was hiding a marriage to your own ex, and their sudden death was no accident. When a beloved aunt's belongings reveal a secret husband, her niece uncovers a web of betrayal, family scandal, and a cover-up that someone will do anything to keep buried. The rain fell in steady sheets as mourners gathered under black umbrellas, their faces somber and pale. Aunt Leela's funeral was a quiet affair, just family and a few close friends. She had always been the glue that held everyone together, her laughter filling the house at holidays, her gentle advice smoothing over family squabbles. For her niece, Grace, the loss felt like a hole in her chest. Leela had been more than an aunt, she'd been a confidant, a second mother, the one person Grace could always count on. After the service, the family returned to Leela's old Victorian home, its stained glass windows casting colorful patterns on the worn wooden floors. The house was filled with memories, photos of Leela and her sister, Ruth, as children, faded birthday cards, the scent of lavender and old books. Grace wandered through the rooms, her grief heavy, until she found herself in Leela's bedroom. There, on the bed, was a small wooden box she'd never seen before. The box was locked, but the key was taped to the bottom. Inside, Grace found a stack of letters, a marriage certificate, and a gold wedding band. Her hands shook as she read the names, Leela Evans and Thomas Carter. Thomas, her mother's ex-husband. Grace's mind reeled. Her aunt had been secretly married to her own sister's ex. Why had Leela hidden this? And why did it feel like the answer was more dangerous than anyone realized? Grace sat on the edge of the bed, the letters spread out before her. Each one was written in Leela's careful script, addressed to my dearest Tom. The letters spanned years, filled with longing, regret, and a love that had survived in the shadows. Leela wrote about stolen weekends, secret rendezvous, and the pain of loving someone she could never claim in public. She wrote of Ruth's heartbreak when Thomas left, and her own guilt for falling in love with him afterward. But the letters grew darker as the years went on. Leela wrote of threats, of someone watching them, of a secret that could destroy everything. She mentioned a promise she and Thomas had made, and her fear that someone in the family would find out. The last letter was dated just days before Leela's death. "If anything happens to me, it won't be an accident," she wrote. "Promise me you'll protect the truth." Grace's heart pounded. She remembered how sudden Leela's death had been, a fall down the stairs, the coroner said, an accident. But now, with the letters in hand, Grace wasn't so sure. She tucked the box under her arm and went to find her mother, Ruth, determined to get answers. Ruth was in the kitchen, staring out the window at the rain. Grace hesitated, then placed the box on the table. "Mom, I found something in Aunt Leela's room." Ruth turned, her face tight with grief and something else, fear, maybe, or guilt. Grace handed her the marriage certificate. Ruth's hands trembled as she read it. "She married him," Ruth whispered. "After everything, she married him." Tears welled in her eyes. "I always wondered if there was more between them, but she swore there wasn't. She lied to me." Grace showed her the letters. Ruth read them in silence, her shoulders shaking. "I loved him, you know," she said at last. "But he left me. I never knew why. Now I do." She looked at Grace, her eyes haunted. "But why keep it a secret? Why hide it from everyone?" Grace pointed to the last letter. Aunt Leela was scared. She thought someone was threatening her. She said if anything happened, it wouldn't be an accident. Ruth's face went pale. "You think someone killed her?" Grace nodded. "I think someone wanted to keep this secret buried." The next day, Grace tracked down Thomas Carter. He lived in a small apartment on the edge of town, a shadow of the man she remembered from childhood. He answered the door, surprised to see her. "Grace? Is everything okay?" She handed him the letters. Thomas read them, his face crumpling with grief. "I loved her," he said. "We tried to do the right thing, but it was never enough. Your mother. She never forgave me. And Leela, she was always afraid. She said someone was watching us. Grace pressed him for details. Thomas hesitated, then confessed. There were phone calls, letters, threats. Someone knew about us. Leela thought it was someone in the family, but she never said who. She was going to tell you everything after the wedding. She wanted to come clean. But then she died. Grace's mind raced. The wedding, her cousin's wedding, had been just days before Leela's death. The whole family had been together. Anyone could have overheard, anyone could have had a motive. Grace realized she was in the middle of a mystery that went deeper than she'd ever imagined. Determined to get to the truth, Grace called a family meeting. She gathered everyone in Leela's living room, her mother, her cousins, her uncle, and even Thomas. The tension was thick as Grace laid out what she'd found: the marriage, the letters, the threats. She watched their faces, searching for any sign of guilt. Her uncle, David, was the first to speak. "This is ridiculous. Leela's death was an accident." But his voice was shaky, and he avoided Grace's gaze. Her cousin, Emily, burst into tears. "I heard them arguing," she sobbed. "Leela and someone on the phone." She sounded scared. Ruth sat in silence, her hands clenched in her lap. Thomas looked at the floor, his grief raw. Grace pressed them all for answers, but no one admitted to knowing about the threats. Still, she sensed secrets in the room, old resentments, jealousies, and wounds that had never healed. After the meeting, Grace found a note slipped under her door: "Stop digging or you'll end up like her." Her blood ran cold. Someone in the family was desperate to keep the truth hidden, and willing to do anything to protect their secret. Grace's fear turned to determination. She searched Leela's house for more clues, combing through drawers, boxes, and old files. In the back of a closet, she found a safe. The combination was Leela's birthday. Inside was a copy of Leela's will, one that had never been filed with the lawyer. The will left everything to Thomas, not Ruth or the rest of the family. Attached was a letter: "If you're reading this, I'm gone. I loved you, Tom. I'm sorry for the pain we caused. Please forgive me." Grace realized the will was motive. Someone stood to lose everything if the truth came out. She took the will to her mother. Ruth's face twisted with anger and betrayal. She left it all to him? After everything? Grace tried to calm her, but Ruth stormed out, slamming the door. Grace wondered if her mother's grief had turned to something darker, if she could have been the one to threaten Leela. That night, Grace heard footsteps outside her window. She peered into the darkness, heart pounding, but saw nothing. The sense of danger grew. She knew she was getting close to the truth, and that someone was watching her every move. Digging deeper, Grace uncovered more secrets. She found old photographs of Leela and Thomas together, vacations, holidays, moments of happiness stolen in secret. She found receipts for hotel rooms, gifts, and a safety deposit box at the local bank. Inside the box were more letters, this time from Ruth to Leela. The letters were filled with anger, jealousy, and heartbreak. "You stole him from me," Ruth wrote. "You ruined my life." Grace realized the affair had torn the sisters apart. Ruth's pain was raw, her anger barely contained. But there was more. One letter hinted at a confrontation the night before Leela's death. "If you don't end it, I will," Ruth had written. Grace's suspicion grew. Had her mother confronted Leela? Had things gotten out of control? She confronted Ruth, who broke down in tears. "I was angry," Ruth admitted. "I went to see her that night. We argued. I left, but she was alive when I did. I swear." Grace believed her, but the timeline was tight. Someone else must have been there after Ruth left. Someone who wanted Leela's secret to die with her. Grace's investigation put her in danger. She received threatening phone calls, her car was vandalized, and she felt eyes on her wherever she went. But she refused to back down. She enlisted Thomas's help, and together they pieced together the final hours of Leela's life. They discovered that David, Leela's brother, had been in financial trouble. He stood to lose the most if Thomas inherited the house. Grace confronted him, and he snapped. She was going to ruin everything. He shouted. She was going to give it all to him, after everything he did to Ruth. I couldn't let that happen. David confessed to confronting Leela the night she died. They argued, and in a moment of rage, he pushed her down the stairs. He panicked, staging the scene to look like an accident. I never meant to kill her, he sobbed. I just wanted her to stop. Grace called the police. David was arrested, and the truth finally came out. The family was shattered, but the secret was no longer buried. The weeks that followed were a blur of grief, anger, and relief. The family struggled to come to terms with the truth. Ruth and Thomas found a fragile peace, united by their love for Leela and their shared pain. Grace inherited the house, choosing to keep it as a place of memory and healing. She went through Leela's things one last time, finding a final letter addressed to her. Dear Grace, it read, I hope you never have to choose between love and loyalty. But if you do, choose forgiveness. It's the only way forward. Grace wept as she read the words, feeling her aunt's presence beside her. The family began to heal, slowly. They gathered for dinners, shared stories, and tried to rebuild what had been broken. The house, once filled with secrets, became a place of truth and reconciliation. A year later, Grace stood in the garden, the sun shining on the flowers Leela had planted. She thought of everything that had happened, the secrets, the lies, the pain, and the forgiveness. She knew the family would never be the same, but she also knew they were stronger for having faced the truth. Grace opened the house to the community, hosting gatherings and sharing Leela's story. She spoke about the importance of honesty, the dangers of secrets, and the power of forgiveness. The house became a symbol of hope, a place where the past was honored but not allowed to define the future. As Grace looked at the family gathered around her, she felt a sense of peace. Leela's secret was no longer a burden, but a lesson, a reminder that love, even when hidden, can survive anything. And that the truth, no matter how painful, is always worth uncovering. If you believe in the power of truth and forgiveness, share this story with someone who needs hope. What would you do if you uncovered a family secret that could destroy everything? Let us know in the comments below.